everybody. Welcome to the class. I'm so stoked you guys are all here. It's been a long time in the making. I really appreciate all of you being here and supporting what we're doing. So I just want to send a big warm thank you to you all and wanting to be better and learn some new things. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to teach you guys some of the stuff that I've learned over the years and just kind of engage your mind into thinking differently and having a new approach to creating content and stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So welcome to the class. I'm going to start off this one with just kind of getting more into theory and ideas and how I dissect information from the client. It's really important, I think, to take in the information and properly convey it back, because at the end of the day, we're just communicators, just in a different style and form. We're communicating images rather than type and stuff. So it's similar, but it's different. And so what I want to try to show you guys is how I take information in and how I dissect it and how important original thought is and all of that stuff. And I'll go on rants and rants about that. So what we have here in front of you, where I'm moving my mouse around, is basically a made up brief. When you work in this industry, you're often going to get various forms of information. You'll get it either from the director or the producer, or just different people down the line as far as the production's concerned. Sometimes you'll get a creative brief like this. Sometimes you get something really big with information and pictures and really nicely laid out. Sometimes you'll get one sentence from the director. So it's really a wild, wild west as far as the variables that you'll receive. But at the end of it, it's mostly just conveying things. The thing that I've laid out here that I've created is more or less on the higher side of probability that you might not get something like this. This is much more elaborate and has more information, but I wanted us to have an ideal situation so that we can kind of make the best out of this project. So let's go ahead and dig into it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and read through this with you guys. There's going to be, just take your time to go through this, because this is going to be something that we're going to refer to through this whole class. It's going to be something that we're going to constantly be talking about and reviewing and pulling everything towards, because everything comes from the story. Everything supports the story. Everything supports the main intention. So let's dig into this. So we're going to call this the hex object. That's the things we're going to be designing and creating. The deliverable, and oftentimes the client will have this here just so you are clear and aware. We're going to have 2 to 4 4K images. This is just a random number. Sometimes it could be anywhere from 10 things to 40 shots or whatever. So don't think that this is normal or anything like that. For those of you that already work in film, I'm sure you know. For those that don't, it just varies upon the project and what your tasks are and your skill level and all that good stuff. So the main concept is this hex object, and it's a nebulous visual data construct intended to hold untold amounts of top secret and sensitive government information. How cool does that sound, huh? So it was a lot of fun to write this. I was having a good time with it. Characters throughout the film will interact with the hex object, illustrating the vast scope of the information network constrained inside. The hex object is a pivotal concept in the film, which will convey ideas and concepts back to the central storyline. One of the most crucial items or concepts we will need to convey is showing a massive population and their abilities to navigate time warping portals throughout the film's universe. Overall, the hex object should be designed to not only look interesting, but also convey basic visual information to the audience and support the character's actions. A bit wordy, I apologize ahead of time, but you're going to get, depending on what you get from the client, you're either going to get a couple sentences, or you're going to get notes from a call, or something that has a lot of words and information. Good thing in our example is we have something to come back to. So there's a lot of nuggets in here that we're going to go through and decipher and pull out and kind of build upon. Let's go further into the document. So here are a few things that we need to be conveyed in the hex object. So little outlines and stuff. So your creative director or your director will be explaining things to you. It needs to be spherical in form. Many layers of depth contain various colors and information of texture and information. Massive network of complexity, almost alien-like in its configuration and language. Non-English fonts more in the numerical realm. So complex beautiful layered data and layered data channels. Sometimes you get things and it won't make much sense, so you can always write these down as far as questions if you get another round. And then the next one is ancient civilization symbols and your universal design, able to be read visually by anyone. So it's kind of like they want to design the language so that they can show this film anywhere without any volume, and it still makes sense. So it's storytelling 101. It's really, really important. So, and depending on how this sounds, this brief, if this was an actual film, this object's going to get a lot of interactivity between the story and the characters. So you're going to get a lot of feedback and information, and there's going to be this is going to be a very important object in the film and the storytelling, which is really cool. Reference. This is some reference points that I decided to put in here as far as something to look for in the design. A flock of sparrows. Sparrows are very small birds, and they fly together in really unique, interesting formations. So reference for a flock of sparrows, star maps, Earth scene from the ISS space station. Some really great things we can pull from there. Fiber optic network cables, camera plumes, shapes, fragmentations, aberrations, elaborate fabrication structures of fundamental architecture. The Sydney Opera House is an example. So maybe they're talking about like this cage of information, how it's concealed and how it's built upon and constructed. Intricacies of microchip manufacturing and spiderweb construction and fabrication. So this is only one page. It's a dense amount of information. There's a lot of things going on here. If you're not familiar and ready for something like this, it can kind of hit you all at once and become very overwhelming. So what's important to do with things like this is to break them into bite-sized pieces, which I usually use, and I think it's important. So I think what we should do is maybe kind of start breaking down keywords, because what I do is to kind of get myself into the way I can kind of digest this information as I start to pull things back. So I start to go, okay, where are the most important things? So it looks like it needs to be spherical in form. So let's go ahead and mark that red. And many layers of depth. So let's put that. Let's put that as red too. Let's see, massive networks of complexities. The complexity is another keyword. So I'm just trying to grab these things that I can latch onto. Alien-like. So let's grab that. And either I'll do it like this. I'm only doing this like this for you guys so you can see it's really clear. My handwriting's really atrocious, and I usually will use my sketchbook, but I'm doing this for you guys because you guys need to see what we're doing, because this is all communication. Numerics, so that's another keyword. Let's grab that. Complex, yep, beautiful. So I think we already have layers of depth, so that takes care of the complexity. There's some redundancy here. Layered data and channels. I don't even know what that means. So this is a good example. Even though I wrote this myself, I wrote this here to kind of get you to think that you might not understand everything. So you can kind of write your own narrative for this stuff, or you can kind of elaborate on it. Ancient civilization symbols, and it has to be a universal design. So I'm going to grab this as well. And you want to try not to grab too much. You just want to grab the right information, just enough to get your mind firing off. Because one thing you're going to learn from me is I'm always going to convey the idea of original thought, the importance of doing any of this stuff and being unique. And if you want to set a really good career path for yourself, you're going to have original thought. People are going to come after you and hire you because you're going to have original thought. I'm going to show you how I do it and why I do it this way. This is really important. Reference, a flock of sparrows. I mean, everything here is pretty usable. We can probably get into these a little bit more, but I would say let's definitely look into star maps. See, flock of sparrows sounds interesting. We should look at that and can kind of talk about that. Let's say like Earth. Let's grab this one too. Sometimes I don't always gather everything that the client wants. Sometimes they might not know what they want, and they might be confused as well. And you can that's a whole different scenario and a different situation. And one important thing is you want to always encourage trust between you and your client. You want to make sure that they understand that you know what they need, and vice versa. Sometimes if they don't know what they need, it's your job to kind of help usher them into the situation to make them happy and satisfied and trusted, and really encourage that trust. Fiber optic network cables, we could probably find that somewhere else. Let's see. I'll probably grab these things because these are always fun. We'll get into these later on in the chapters, how I finish files and how it really all comes together, because towards the end of the files, they all really kind of shine towards the end. They kind of like somewhat okay in the beginning, but they really start to reveal themselves towards the end. Elaborate fabrication, elaborate structure. Let's just grab this. I think it's a little wordy over there, so let's grab that, and let's grab this. Let's see, intricacies of microchip manufacturing. Sure, let's just see what that looks like. Let's maybe look on the web and see what the information comes back for that. Spider web construction. Let's grab that. Let's go back up here to the most important things, which are conveying ideas in the film. Let's see, the hex object. Probably grab some of these things. It needs to be interactive. I remember seeing something here that said interactive in the film. I'll remember to put that when we start to mind map and stuff, but the main concept is all here. You can go back and forth and kind of look at these things. And we need to deliver 2 to 4, and these are going to be all in your homework and all that stuff. We're going to break all this goodness down, and you guys will have a really great path in order to create something great. And at the end of this, you guys will have a good understanding of how I do all this stuff. So it looks like we lost this thing right here. Let's see. Yeah, make that red. Bam. And there we go. So I've kind of deciphered, and I'll go ahead and save a new version of this. Let's see, desktop. Put that here. Create a brief. And save that. So we have a version of that. So the next thing I like to do is, after I've dissected these things and made callouts and keywords, I like to use this application called MindNode. I will have links to it in the in our homeworks and everything. You guys will know about it. But it's called MindNode. I use many different things. This is one thing that I use that's electronic. I have it here now because I want to kind of convey to you guys just a little bit more of like my process and stuff. And sometimes I use this, sometimes I use my sketchbook. Depending on the time, I'll just grab my sketchbook. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have something quick and easy to use when you need it and right at your side. So, but let's kind of dig into this. It's really easy to use. It's really intuitive. I use it for writing stories and constructing when I go and do like talks and stuff. I'll often use this. It just really helps me because I have a really cluttered mind. It helps me kind of throw all the clutter on here and then start to branch it into little clumps and stuff like a mind map. That's basically what you're doing here. So let's break this down. So we have the hex object, which is the thing we're trying to construct. Let's see characteristics. And let's see. So the characteristics is it's spherical in form. And I know this kind of stuff can be dry. Like, okay, you know what? When are we going to do this? Like, when are we going to start making stuff? We will, and we're going to make awesome stuff, I promise. But this is an important step. This is where everything lies. This is where we're going to refer, and I'm going to come back to this a lot. And so if you're not paying attention now, you're going to regret it later because I'm going to be calling it out. So it's really important for you to follow this. Many layers of depth. So its characteristics has depth. So, and layers. And it's very complex. And it has alien-like. And it's beautiful as well. This is very subjective, so we'll have to kind of, if I were to have a call with the client, I would probably decipher what they meant by layered data channels, and what beautiful is, because it's very subjective. You want to try and eliminate all subjectivity and are just subjective lines like this out of your brief, so you can get straight to the point. You want really clear and concise information exchanged. Symbols, let's see, some symbols. Universal design, and it's going to be numerics. So that's some of the characteristics. I'm going to put in some ref. So when we look at references, we already have the callouts here, but I wanted to kind of like elaborate on if I were to go really deep into the process of deciphering these things, this is how I would do it. And this is, mind you, if you have enough time. A lot of how I work in my design is how I design. You're going to hear this a lot through this thing. My career is designed around the industry in which I work, which is a very fast, very rapid industry. So I'm constantly making choices and decisions off of very rapid time. So I might not always have this time and this luxury which I'm going through. So I want you guys to be aware of that as well. So flock of sparrows, let's see, we got star maps. These are things we're going to look up and find, and I will articulate, and we'll use them as muse or usable references throughout the lectures and the classes, so you guys can see why I use what and how and where I get it from and all that good stuff. All the good stuff, guys. Lots of good stuff. Plumes, shapes, fragmentations, and aberrations. Let's see, we got structural. So even though it's spherical, it can be structural, and we can dissect that and get into more of that. Intricacies of microchip. Let's just put microchip manufacturing. Chip, because we already know microchip is intricate. Manufacturing, and then the spider web construction. Okay, so we have the hex object, and we can, the cool thing about this is you can drag this and move it around, and you can change things, and it's really great. So when I get to this stage, so I've already gotten the brief, dissected the brief, I've gotten it from the director or whoever's on the crew, and I start to break down, okay, I need to create this thing called the hex object. The hex object is made out of characteristics and references. These are my references that kind of coincide with what they are asking of me in the brief. So the next stage I'd probably do is go like spherical in form. So start thinking about characteristics. I mean, that's can't really go beyond that. Complexity. So these are things I'm starting to think about, like, okay, what's complex? Like, data sheets, enormous amounts of information, code-based. And so right here is what I'm riffing. I'm just kind of throwing ideas down. It's important to get these out, and it's kind of hard to do as I'm explaining this, but I'm going to just do my best as you guys go through this. You'll see once you're just kind of, you want to get that channel of thought and you want to just flow with it, kind of get your ideas going. Alien-like, so it's kind of has a symbol system, unknown, unique, different. Let's see, erase this one, and it's pretty simple. In my node, you just grab that thing. If you don't want it, you just delete it. It's really user-friendly. If I want to put this up above here, it moves things around. It's very modular. It's a really great app. I was turned on to it a few years ago, and I really enjoy using it ever since. It just, like I said, it helps me organize my thoughts. Universal design, so I can actually put this in with probably the symbols. I could probably put the symbols here, and the numerics, I would probably put that in the universal design. And you see how I can kind of break things down and start to get really, further into the ideas, and you can go further into, more things as you go into references and stuff. But this is the gist of it, and I can go further down into the grips of madness as I kind of decipher what it is that I'm trying to create. But as you go, and don't mind my spelling here, it's pretty bad, but let's see. But yeah, this is generally how I decipher information and I convey it. And the thing I'm trying to convey to you guys that I hope you take note of is this is a lot of information, and it's all coming at me in one big chunk, and before I start to decipher it. If you miss something, it looks bad upon you, and you don't want to be that person that's, the director or the client's like, what the heck, you missed out on that one thing that I was looking for. I said to make it spherical in form, and if you miss that and you made it, a square or something, it's going to be cause an issue. So what this is I'm trying to break these things down into little bite-sized pieces, which I think are really important. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting inspired by visuals, because we're visual people. We're creating something that's visual. I think that a real important thing is pulling your references and getting that ready. So I basically, I went through and I grabbed a bunch of references prior to this, so you wouldn't have to sit through and watch me scour the web for it. A couple tools that I use to grab references. You can use many different search engines. Google is usually the best. Let's go and grab Google and I'll go through it. I'm sure you guys are all really familiar with it, but if not, let's go ahead and dig in here. So let's talk about like a star map. That's one of our first references, right? So star map. I'll just Google this. You go into images here and search tools. And let's say I want to find something that's pretty big, so I have good resolution of it. You can change these features right here. You can go and adjust your search per these parameters. I grab this and I'm like, oh, wow, that looks pretty cool. Like this has a lot of really cool information. It's matching a couple of these keywords, right? It's got complexity, it's beautiful looking, it's intricate, it has a lot of information, it's got all these things. And as you can tell, I've already grabbed this image just off that one keyword. See, so I'm going from the brief, which is here, I'm deciphering all the keywords, and now I'm grabbing the keywords, I'm going into my node and grabbing them down further so I can organize them. And if I don't use this, I use my sketchbook. You don't have to use my node. You can use Photoshop even and just kind of make little mind maps and just kind of articulate your idea. The key is you have to do this. This is an important step. And then the next one is I go and I'll scour the web for the information that I'm searching for. So here's some of the references, and I'll kind of just quickly go over why and what I grabbed and just kind of connecting it back to it. So let's see, we got some focus areas. This is a really great reference because you have repetition. It's a beautiful image. You have repetition, you have graphical language. But this is more in, I'm going to show you guys how and why I grab references and the things that I do grab. This is more in the inspiration side rather than references that I can actually use in my composition. But this is a really great image. There's something beautiful about the structure. It has some of the keywords, right? You know how we decipher those things. It has some of those keywords, so it's an important image for us to use as a construct. So this is a good inspirational image. I call these like my muse images. Here's a flock of sparrows, as I was describing earlier. If you get a chance, check out like YouTube videos, and they're really beautiful. And the way they kind of move and the network system that they fly in, flock in, it's kind of, they're really similar to how schools of fish move. You'll notice a lot of times too, a really great director or a good creative director will often use nature as a reference. One thing I'll get into further too is trying not to use any contemporary or current day artists as your inspiration, because you're just going to kind of get lumped in with the rest of everybody, and you don't want that. You don't want to get become a generic copy of somebody else. You want to be an authentic person, and we're all pulling muse from nature. And so this is a quick example of that, and that's why I put it in the brief. I remember in a case study for even Ender's Game, they used this as a reference for the way the Formic, the buggers flew around and stuff, and it was a great reference, and it helped us understand and push the ideas through the whole film, which is a lot of fun. Here's some chromatic like prisms and really interesting spans of color. So this is more of a muse information, obviously, but it was really beautiful, and I thought there was really something great for us to use. The feel and the sensation that this image gives you is we need to really kind of capture these essences and stuff. The constructs of this, I thought this was a really interesting image. This is more inspiration as well. It's obviously a cube, but there's a lot of intricacies and details. Here's that star map. It doesn't look too good when it's really close, but when it's a little out of focus, it looks really good. And we'll talk a bit about that too, and forcing people's eyes to follow what you're wanting them to see. This is just a really beautiful image. This is more muse. This image is very striking. You can use Pinterest. I sometimes use Pinterest to gather information, gather boards. You can use that instead of using, let's say, like Bridge. You could put together like a quick Pinterest board and populate that. I have a lot of friends that use Pinterest quite a bit, and they love it. I have nothing against it. I think it's a great resource. It's just how you use it. My only concern and thing I was going to say with that is just be cautious of where you're getting your information and how you're getting it, and not to get clumped in with everybody else. Here's some more just really great information. This is just really beautiful, star map kind of stuff, mathematical stuff. Here's something from the Ghost in the Shell project we did. The only reason I'm bringing this up is it has some of those key elements. I saw it randomly when I was going through reference it, and I was thinking, oh, this would be good for us to talk about. And we'll probably come back to this image and some of the ideas and stuff, because it's similar in form to what our brief is and what it's asking for. Here's some really beautiful micro scans or micro images of some of those. What was that keyword? I'm already missing it. Of the microchip manufacturing. So look at this intricacy. Look how much information is conveying here, and like I'm saying, a lot of this stuff is just all build. It's all the ingredients. If you're gonna make a great meal, you're gonna have all these ingredients, and this is just how I work. I grab information, and I just go kind of on a binge. I'll spend it depending on my time, and I'll go in through time management as well with you guys. But depending on if I have an 8-hour day to build something, I'll spend the first 30 to an hour dissecting the information. Then I'll spend another 30 minutes or so kind of constructing my path of how I'm going to create. Then I'll spend like an hour just going through references, getting my mind in this space, this creative space, looking at things, getting inspired, like, wow, like this is so beautiful, the way that the camera shakes and the way that the light's being prismed out. It's just gorgeous, like how can we convey this same information with a vector graphic or an informational like user interface or this hex object, just getting inspired by reality, earth, nature, that nothing beats nature really. It's so authentic, it's so unique. It's something that we've always been studying and being around, and it's just something that we're familiar with, and it's really good and important to be inspired by that. Also, like these images, I found these really epic scans of these microchips. Look at this like detail and stuff, and I get so excited about this because, and you should too, if you're taking this course, you're already excited about this kind of stuff because you have an eye for detail, you have an interest in detail, you have an interest in conveying information in detail. But I mean, look at this. It's just like looking at the top of a city. It's so beautiful, and it has so much to tell you, and you can use this. This is more in the realm of usable reference. I can use this, let's say this whole block, and you can use this as a texture. And I'll show you guys how I do that and how I kind of kit bash these things. I use kit bash in a completely different way than most people, but it's really similar formula. More of that, and all I did was search microchip photography or microchip manufacturer. I think I even just used that search word, and this is the stuff that came up. I mean, look how beautiful this stuff is. And I'm telling you guys, I'm trying to get you guys to see these things. I think art, sometimes the key to art is seeing how you see things, how you are revealed to the world, how well you're able to dissect information, and how fast you are. And I want you to look at these like aberrations and these plumes and these little kind of glows and hits and this depth of focus and where your eye goes. And when you're studying this image, just looking at it, you have this significant, beautiful array of patterns and this array of colors. Then you also have this depth happening. These are all key ingredients that we want to work with so that we can really impress our audience or our client. And these are things that I've really fostered and grown into my own style, and I really kind of believe in, and I think that's something that's really helped me keep my career going. And obviously, as you guys can tell in my tone of my voice, I'm really excited about this stuff. I love this stuff. It's so cool. I just nerd out on details and things, and just like imagine the things that are going on here. It has a narrative all in itself. So it's something I will be grabbing these things and looking at these references. This is just a incredibly beautiful image. I remember having this as my desktop art for such a long time. It's very simple, but it has a lot of information, and oftentimes, and we're going to learn this too as we go, is sometimes the least amount of information is the best information. And since we're making more science fiction kind of stuff in this, it's not going to be more user-based in reality. It's going to be more science fiction and for fun, and we're going to be able to break a lot of rules that we wouldn't be able to in reality. All of this is just so much madness, and sometimes if you're smart and you take your time and you're patient and you find the right reference, you can really take it and go far with it. And this is just an example of just searching the web for a little bit. I think for these images, I probably searched for maybe 20 minutes or so. I didn't take a lot of time, so I was able to find some really, I call them like gems. You're able to search around, you're like this miner searching around the web, and boom, you find these great things. Here's some more. This amazing prism, lights casting through it. These little bits of texture and things like that, and this blur and this kind of shake and this plume and all these things. You got to really sharpen your eye and your mind for these things. I'm gonna really show you guys how I do it and what's important to kind of push these ideas through. It's not just like a vector graphic or something kind of numbing. It's this beautiful, elaborate construct, which is the hex object. That's what the client's looking for. It's more like a flock of sparrows. I mean, look at this. This is so nuts. This is crazy. Some kind of like Samsung chip. Sometimes they'll get lost in the matrix of the internet too. So you got to be cautious about that, because y'all go in and I'll start reading about like what this is. And the good thing is though, is, you know, you always retain this information. Sometimes it'll come back when you're trying to decipher things. This image is just really striking as well. I'm not going to just decipher all of these. I've gone through most of them, but I just want to show you guys kind of the information that I look for, the difference between these bits of information, and kind of show you guys my excitement, because I hope when you guys go and search for your references, and when you start to populate your brief and your ideas and your folders with this stuff, that it's going to be really inspiring for you, and it's going to be something really great. Again, I'm using Bridge. It's Adobe Bridge. It comes with everything that I have. I have like the Adobe CC Creative Cloud, and it's awesome. It really works great. Sometimes when I remember getting it first, it was like the background was gray and it wasn't helping me see the images, so I changed that. Just augment that in the settings and preferences. You can change all that stuff, so it will help you. There's also other reference search things that you can use, display things. There's one called PureRef that Miche uses, my co-teacher in this, and seems to be really great as well. It gives you kind of like a sheet. You can always move these things around, or you can rate them by hitting Command 5. I'm using a Mac, but you can kind of rate them, and then you can go like, oh, you know, as you go through, okay, these are my 2 top images, and you can kind of distill that down. We'll go into that further as we go into these different chapters of creating all this stuff, but I'm breaking things down to a microscopic level so that you guys can really see. And I've been really trying to be cautious of how I do the things that I do, and not assume that you guys know what I'm doing, so you guys can understand it. So the next thing I usually tend to do is, after I've gone through all this stuff and made the notes and gone the mind node and made the mind map and pulled the references, is I will jump in and start messing with some thumbnails and some quick compositions. I think this is also something that really will help you differentiate yourself from everybody else. What you're doing is you're creating an image, you're creating an idea, something to inspire the rest of the crew, because in this film, people are going to take this, as you go through the production pipeline, people are going to take these objects and these things that you made, they're going to be inspired by them, and they're going to have to make them move or grow or whatever. And it's important to really hit it hard and make it amazing, so that, you know, when the production gets really hard and these things are getting frustrated and people are getting upset or whatever, at least they have this really beautiful image that they really want to see brought to life. So it's really important to have these key aspects. So I'm going to move on over to my Cintiq, which is the Wacom stylus that I use to draw. I have it's an awesome tool that I've been using for some time now. So I'm going to jump into that, and let's talk about detailing the thumbnails, and we should be good. All right, so here we are. We're in my other screen. So when I work, I have a 30 inch cinema display. And then on my left, I'm left-handed, I have a 21 UX Cintiq. Check those things out, they're pretty rad. I've been using mine, like I said, for quite some time now. I do a lot of illustrations on it. It's a really great tool. I'm not trying to endorse anything. Wacom just makes great stuff. You don't have to use this, though. You can use a simple, just a normal Wacom pad or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's as long as you're getting these ideas out. You can use a pad of paper and a pencil. Like I said, it really doesn't matter. This is just my own system and how I work, but I want you guys to know, if you guys are curious, the tools that I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and dig in. I'm going to start building out the thumbnail. So the key thing with this is I'm just using the brush. Use a brush key right here, and we'll go over those tools and stuff. I'll make a tool video for you guys earlier on. The brush is just a simple round brush right here. These are the brushes that I actually acquired from Miche. I think I've lost all my brushes or something happened. I'm really bad with these things. It doesn't really matter though, because it's just, the brush itself is just a means to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these objects right here. These are going to be my templates. Let's see. And these are my outlines, basically. These are 1920 by 1080. Most of the time film is going to be around that aspect ratio, which I believe is 16:9. It doesn't have to always be that way. Some films are much more widescreen and they all have a different aspect ratio. But the key thing here is we're just trying to get the ideas out. So, and we'll think about those key words that we were using and pulling out from it. So it's spherical in form. So let me grab black, get some more black in here. So it's spherical in form. So let's make this. And like I said, these can be really crude. It doesn't matter. It's more for composition. And you're just trying to get the ideas out. You really need to start bridging the gap between the brief that you had and then the keywords, and then deciphering those things down into images and utilizing the references. When I hit the F key, and when I hit the F key, it kind of isolates me so I can see just one thing. It's really important for me. I don't like distractions, visual distractions. Another thing when you're working on thumbnails, they're called thumbnails because they're supposed to be the size of your thumbnail. So it actually should be about that big when you're making them. The key to that is to restrain you from over detailing things. If you're like me, you want to detail everything to death, and it's going to cause you a lot of hardship because you're going to be spending too much time on each stage. So try to keep them small if you can, get the ideas out. So it's spherical in form and it's complex, so we can kind of doodle some stuff in there. Maybe there's another form inside of it. Maybe there's another one in here too. Perhaps it has like a kind of a ring system or something, or an atom system, and you see how quickly I can make these ideas happen. It's really simple. I just invested a couple of seconds, and the drawing looks like crap, but at the same time it doesn't matter because the idea is to get these things out on paper as fast as possible. So this is a very rough idea. This is a very, very rough composition. Maybe there's some little nebula kind of things out here. And this is, like I said, I'm mimicking space and stuff. There were some references to how Earth looks in space, and maybe these are, can mimic what satellites are, the stars in the night sky. Let's maybe take another idea and think about, can maybe kind of come over here and have that we're like really a lot closer on something. Maybe we're inside of it, and here's the outer shell, and this is wrapping around us and kind of encompassing us. And we have this interesting composition where we have these objects right here, and they're all kind of together, and we have a different vantage point. And 9 times out of 10, depending on, like, for me, it's hard to teach it and explain it as I'm going. Sometimes I'll just hit it because I know I'm in a flow, I'm connecting my mind and my ideas. But sometimes you just will draw stuff and it's just garbage, and you just have to delete it and keep going and thinking about other things. That's not the key right here. Is not to make a pretty picture. Please don't get lost in that. It's not about making a pretty picture. It's about getting your mind and your eye going and connecting images now, but spending very little time. And the best way to do that is to just kind of build things and think about things. It's spherical in form. Maybe we can kind of get closer on it. And when you describe this thing to the client, they want 2 to 4 images to kind of sell the director or whoever on the idea. You want to kind of come up with maybe some different vantage points of this thing, so you can kind of explain to them, like, oh, I was thinking that maybe in part of the film, the actor can touch this area and it would all ripple out and open up, but they have to like touch it with this other sphere or something, and it would have this shattering effect or something. And how would you convey that? And it's just, I'm just trying to get these ideas out very roughly, very quickly. And like I said, initially these are very crude images, but that's not the point here. And I'm going to keep driving this home, and you need to know it, because when I sometimes get too far into things, I get detail oriented. Trust me, there's going to be time for detail orientation. You guys are going to probably kill me because I get really into detail, and that's how I really try to push everything home. So right now, take a nice enjoyment and not having to put too much time into this. But so basically what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of conveying quick ideas, quick compositions, the basic compositions center. I'm a big fan of Stanley Kubrick, and he's big on that. It's just, it's graphical beautiness, you know. So if this is our frame right here, let's keep it in the center. Let's keep it spherical. Let's follow those bases. Let's keep it all isolated right here. Let's maybe get one that's kind of closer up and see it, and it's gonna be this really beautiful array of information conveyed and all this detail and multiple spheres inside. Maybe there's a couple in here too, some closer to us, and maybe there's some that are coming closer and there's some that are further off. And we're going to talk about depth of focus and pushing the eye. Remember that web that we were talking about and deciphering that image can have a lot of that kind of stuff. And right here too. So, you know, we're not trying to make a pretty drawing. What we're trying to do is get our ideas out fast, make compositions. Okay, so depending on the client, the job, the project, I might do 20 of those, or I don't know, 50 of them, or 3. It just depends on how much time I have and what I'm trying to convey. For this thing, I'm going to really want you guys to spend your time kind of just getting quick ideas out, quick compositions. You guys might even have really similar ones to me. It's hard to really beat this image because it's just awesome in center. You can maybe, you know, let's see, you can make a mask and kind of remove that one, and let's just see CX and make a new one. See, you can maybe make one where it's like coming up from the bottom here, or from the top, sorry, and you have these details kind of wrapping around it, and it's almost like we're watching Earth, and we have the flipped view on it. Most of the time when we see pictures of Earth, we see it like this because it makes us feel like we're grounded, but in Earth there is no right way up. Or I mean in space, sorry. So when you do this composition, it instantly makes you feel like it's something alien. But if you kind of use Earth as a sunrise, kind of like the sunset, there was an image in the reference where there was a satellite. You can use that as your driving force, and you can make an image that has that kind of template and that kind of layout. And you're going to have this completely different edge. You're going to have a really unique thing. You're getting inspiration from Earth. You're getting inspiration from nature. You're getting inspiration from these keywords from this brief, and you're articulating it down, and all these really great things. So let's go ahead and do a recap on everything. So we spent a bit of time kind of deciphering the script itself, which is all here, and we kind of broke down all the key structures and how everything kind of works, and pulled out the keywords. We then went into MindNode, and like I said, you can either use Photoshop and just quickly make mind maps there if that's comfortable for you, if you like working digitally, or you can use your sketchbook or grab a napkin. It doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter, guys. I'm just using what I use here, so don't feel obligated. If you want to use MindNode, it's an amazing program, totally all for it, but don't feel obligated. Don't let that hold you up from learning. You're going to go through there, you're going to decipher these things, kind of pull out the keywords, and go much further than I, if you want, get more articulate and kind of make your own narratives and kind of fall down into the rabbit hole. Then from there, we'll try to take all those things and pull some references. And I kind of articulated the reasons and the things that I did grab. In the brief, we do have reference callouts, which you're lucky, you might not always have that. Or the director will say, yeah, it's like a flock of sparrows, and maybe use star maps, and just listen to those keywords because you're going to have to use those as frame of references. And then, you know, I'll have some references are just there to show me, to keep me inspired as a muse. And then some of the references will be there so I can use them as textures and details and things. And I'll show you how I do that. And you're going to decipher between the two and how to choose and all that stuff. So it's all decisions and choices. But so as a recap, that's going to be it. You guys are going to go and make some thumbnails and make those things out and kind of decipher it. I wanted to enter you guys into this kind of easily because it's going to get more in-depth and complicated. We're going to get further into 3D and all that kind of madness. So I wanted you guys to kind of enter this and see it kind of from a professional standpoint. This is how I work. This is where I've been working for a long time, and this is how the process kind of works for me. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, this course. I'm so excited to have you guys here. This is going to be an amazing journey. Hope you guys enjoy the next one. Go do your homework, and let's talk soon. Ciao.